Since 2009, it has been our goal to support, promote, engage, and inspire the arts community by igniting the ghost light that shines on the stages of the up-and-coming, the unsung heroes, the brilliant writers, and the dynamic designers. Our podcast breaks the fourth wall to give you an inside look at the plays and the players. Stay tuned. Rep Radio is on the air. Welcome to Rep Radio. I'm your host, Darnell Radford, and today I'm in Rep Radio Studio B, and we are quite crowded today, but it's a beautiful day in Philadelphia, and I'm here with alumni Hank Curry. Welcome back. He continues to create interesting work or be involved in interesting work and brings it to us, and it's always great to be able to chat about it and find out what else is going on. But I'm also in the room with three other lovely ladies, and we'll have them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Summerfield.
Hi, I'm Katie Frazier.
Hi, I'm Leslie Miller.
Mm-hmm. And then Hank.
I'm Hank.
And then Hank. So, welcome to Rep Radio.
Thank you.
So we're here to talk about your upcoming production, The Fortress.
Yes.
So who wants to lead off and tell us about The Fortress?
I think Leslie does.
What? I think Hank should.
Yeah, Hank probably should.
Hank's project, he wrote it.
Threw Leslie right underneath the bus.
Yeah. I just wanted to see what she'd come up with if I put her on the spot.
Hold on, let me just back this bus up real quick.
You'd be like, it's about an assistant trying to take care of this garden.
All right, tell us about The Fortress.
Yeah, so The Fortress is a play that I wrote, directed, produced, and am in because I don't know when to stop doing things. And it was inspired by some essays I'd read comparing Buster Keaton to Franz Kafka. It was not really a connection that I saw, but the idea of the connection was very interesting to me. So basically the jumping off point was, what if Buster Keaton made adapted a Kafka story? What would that look like? And that was sort of where the script came from, the idea of trying to meld those two sensibilities. So our plot premise is heavily informed by Kafka, specifically the castle, but much of the goings-on are seen through kind of the silent comedy lens and the screwball comedy lens of the early 30s, as well as some vaudeville influence and things like that.
And some clowning?
Yep, always a little clowning there.
Not a Curry production without clowning.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that that these essays that you wrote, you read these essays that you read. How long ago did you read those, and when did the process of creating The Fortress start?
Well, I first read them a number of years ago when I was sort of first discovering Buster Keaton, and I was kind of just devouring anything I could find to read up on him. But the idea of sort of combining the two was something I came up with in the past year or so. And I was trying to backtrack my where my brain started on this. This year is the centennial celebration of Buster Keaton's film career. He made his first film appearance in 1917. I guess that essay was just kind of popped into my head because I wanted to do something with Keaton because it's something that I'm very passionate about, and his influence sort of informs a lot of my work, but not in a very explicit way, more just in my general approach to clowning and physical comedy and that kind of thing. And I was interested in kind of diving full into doing Keaton, but I didn't want to do like a one-man show about Buster Keaton's life or something, because that's something that other people have done, and I couldn't think of like a hook of doing that would be unique or worthwhile. But the idea of doing a Keaton story was something that was interesting to me, almost like a lost Buster Keaton film or something, and that's when I remember the essays I'd read and the comparisons to him and Kafka, and I thought, that premise of, for those of you who haven't read The Castle, it's about a land surveyor who comes into this town where he's been hired as a land surveyor, but he's unable to do his job because he gets trapped in this bureaucratic web, and he ends up like basically living in the town while trying to get permission and paperwork and stuff filed so that he can actually do the job he was hired to be there for. But he's so ensconced in trying to get to the castle and all that where he was hired from. And the idea of navigating that bureaucratic web seemed like something that would be really interesting to do in Keaton's comedic style, without necessarily, doing a straight-up adaptation of The Castle, which we couldn't afford to do anyway, because then you'd have to get the rights to the book. But just using that as a jumping off point was interesting to me, and it all kind of dovetailed into a number of things I wanted to do, because I also wanted to do an immersive kind of work. I guess the go-to example would be something like Sleep No More, but I haven't seen that. I did see a couple Brennan Geffers productions, which were done in the Powell House, that I thought were really, really interesting and engaging, where you could sort of choose which characters you follow and explore the space on your own, and you got to control what the theatrical experience was. It was like you were the director of your own personal movie, where you were choosing which characters got which scenes and who got focus and that kind of thing. And I also had wanted to work with Jen for a while. We had talked about doing something, and I remember asking her, what's a role that you really want to play that no one ever cast you as? And she said a Carol Lombard screwball heroine. And I was like, great, I'll put that in the show.
So we'll go over and we'll get the ladies in on this. I actually hope that we have seen some immersive theater in Philadelphia over the past years. When I think immersive theater, I think about New Paradise Laboratories did a Fate book back in, I think it was 2009 or 2010, and they just did Gumshoe with the Free Library and the Rosenbach, or the Rosenbach. And as we were going through that, I was saying there's so much history in Philadelphia that every historic building has the opportunity for some sort of immersive theater element. Yeah. And so I think it's great that we use like the Physick House and the Powell House a lot for more intimate theatrical events. And I really hope that this is more like, we've got, there's a drama, there's a comedy, there's a musical, and immersive theater. There's a drama, there's a comedy, there's a musical, and immersive theater. I hope there's a lot more coming throughout. But we'll go to the ladies, and we'll start with Jen. Tell me how you got involved in the piece and what your character is.
Okay. Well, I guess I met Hank a few years ago at Dickens Village. We have the seasonal job here in Philly at Macy's, where we dress
this trend. It starts in Old City with historic Philadelphia,
yes.
and then there's
get
a little bit
recruited.
of a break, and then you go to Terror Behind the Walls, and then after that you go to Dickens Village.
Exactly.
And then you're unemployed.
Yeah.
And if you've done it right, maybe you can take a
I was never part
vacation.
of HPI, so I kind of skipped that trajectory. I just went straight to Dickens Village. Straight to the high point.
Yeah.
Jen's a real star.
Yeah.
She went right to the top.
And that's where Hank
like,
discovered
"It's kind of a big
me
deal."
and, making me the next big thing in Philly.
Yeah. That's what I've heard.
No, but then we ran into each other. I was working at the Constitution Center last summer.
Oh, yeah, that's another one, too.
Yeah. And Hank was one of the storytellers on the bench outside, so we would cross paths, and then he told me that he'd like to discuss the possibility of collaborating on something. And I've worked at the Physick House. I produced a production of Hedda Gabler at the Physick a couple of years ago, and I also performed a one-woman yellow wallpaper there last summer. And so I know them, they're wonderful people, and they're very excited about having theater in their houses.
Yeah.
It's the same people who run the Powell House and Grumblethorpe and Waynesboro. And so they've been, asking me, do you have other ideas? Please come back. And then when Hank was talking about his ideas, I said, well, I have the perfect venue for it, and so I was able to introduce them, and that's how we wound up at the Physick. So that's really, really cool.
Great, cool. And so you're also playing a character in the piece.
Yeah.
You're playing Kathleen
Yes.
Hayes. Can you tell us a
Kathleen
little?
Keyes.
Keys? Oh, it is Keys. Yes. My glasses. Sorry. Kathleen Keyes. So tell us a little bit about Kathleen.
Well, she's part of the bureaucratic network of the fortress, but she's very much a dreamer and a romantic, and her office is this really bizarre room in the Physick House that everybody's going to love if they're able to get in to actually see it. It'll be interesting to rehearse with an audience just to see how the audience is really
how everybody
incorporated.
fits in there.
Yeah. Exactly. Because right now we've been rehearsing at Hank's house, which is totally different.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun though. It's that unknown quantity.
I think the other thing that's good about immersive theater is that everyone's perspective is going to be different. So, if you're in a different part of this room, or if you're not in the room but you're overhearing it, you're going to process this differently, and or you might miss something, and you have to sort of be in tune with the rest of the group that's with you to make sure that all those gaps are filled in if you miss something. That'll be interesting. And then Leslie?
Katie.
Katie and Leslie. Katie and Leslie. We'll go to Katie.
Great.
She had a nickel.
I know, right? Leslie. We do have 3 redheaded women in the room, so that's it's easy to get us confused. But I am Katie Frazier. I am. I'm going to be playing one of the Terry Suches beside a not redheaded, not lady named Alice McCormick.
So apparently there are 2 muches of Terry Suches.
Funny. And I've known Hank. God, I've known Hank about 4 years. This will be my 4th summer with HPI. So, 4
years.
Yeah, and he and I we storytell together down in Old City, and we have. This is the first time we've worked together outside of.
Yeah, and I've been dying to work with you for a while.
So this is the first time Hank and I have worked together on something outside of a work sort of situation. But I'd seen Hank's pieces and knew his sort of style and knew that physical comedy was something that he was interested in. And he was he comes to me at Dickens Village as well. And he goes, do you want to be in a show I'm doing? And I was like, all right. And he was like, you don't know what it is. And I was like, no. And then he was like, so you're going to be handcuffed to a trunk with Alex McCormick. And I was like, okay, I guess. Sure. And he was like, all right, well, I'll email you in January. That's what happened.
That's kind of how it works, too. You're just walking by and you go, you'll do.
Yeah. That's what I like to think.
Necessarily that you do, but you know how you just sort of work with people for various things for a while, and then you just start to, the producer in you, the director in you starts to think like, wait a minute, yes, I think you'd be a good fit. Hey, do you want to be a part of this thing?
Yeah.
I don't have it all fleshed out, but I'm working on it, and I think having you involved will, help inform where it's going to go. Might work out.
Yeah.
I think that's also one of the things that's really good about Philadelphia's, in general, I'll say Philadelphia's creative community is that you can't throw a stone without hitting a creative or someone who can add some
types,
sort of artistic element to the work that you're trying to do, and we are seeing a lot of that throughout.
Yeah,
which is great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Okay. All right, so now we go to Leslie.
So I'm playing the character of Miss McGuire.
Mm-hmm.
She is a neurotic assistant, very rule-oriented, part of the bureaucratic system like Kathleen, but not a dreamer. Her dream is for everything to be in order, and I feel like throughout the course of this play, that's a struggle for her, really, is to keep the order among all of this chaos.
She's the librarian in the group.
Yeah.
Almost literally in some ways.
Yeah. Not a terribly organized library.
No.
I'm doing my best. I also have to keep the garden kept.
That's true.
Yeah, you've got a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah.
And I get the feeling that Miss McGuire volunteered for all of them.
Yeah.
She loves it.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of like Katie, Hank just asked me to be a part of this project. He was like, yeah, I'm writing a script. I have a part that I think would be good for you. And I was like, okay, sure. We worked together. I have worked at Dickens Village.
Oh, my God. Shout out.
But we work at Escape the Room together. And I met Hank a few years ago when I saw him doing a solo clown piece. And it was when I had first moved to Philadelphia. And I got really excited about the type of work that he was doing. And then I kind of became like, I don't know. I was like, where's Hank Curry? What's he doing? How do I get to know this person? I'm new here. Who are my physical theater people? I'm in school right now at Pig Iron doing the MFA program. So the physical nature and all of the clowning elements really intrigued me about this project. And also the immersive theater thing I think is really cool and unique.
Cool.
And we've worked together before.
Right, yeah, we did that thing for 5 minutes.
Yes, we did. But also my movie.
Right.
The short film that I wanted.
Yep. I was doing yoga in the park.
While the sandwich fell on your head.
Yes. Hilarious.
Yeah.
So the fortress kind of takes us through parts of Old City. Mm-hmm. Right? And why? as in, why not just figure out a way to stage all of this in the physics house?
In one spot.
In the physics house.
Well, I wanted to enhance the scope of the journey. I didn't want it. I think if you keep everything in one house, especially like the Physick House can have like some cramped rooms and hallways and stuff. You can get a kind of claustrophobic sense, which I didn't feel was right for this project. I wanted you to feel like this wasn't like the fortress. It's not about a building. It's about this whole strange community that my character encounters, and to make it a physical journey, I think really open it up in an interesting way. It's kind of slightly guided immersive theater. Becky, our stage manager, will be kind of leading the people around. But once they enter the Hill-Physick House, which is a good chunk of the play, probably if not half the play, probably half the play is in there. Then the audience kind of has the autonomy of choosing what scene are they going to watch while there's two scenes happening simultaneously. And then it gets more linear anytime the characters leave the house, because we kind of keep everyone together. We don't want people wandering the streets, and I mean, if they want to walk out on the show, that's fine, but that's not really the idea.
Are these cars a part of this?
Yeah. Is this part of the show? Rite Aid? Yeah.
Somebody walks by, spare some change.
Yeah. That guy was so good.
No.
It's like he was really homeless.
He smelled authentic. Great.
Get lost in another old city tour, and
I think the outside structure is really cool, because at the beginning, Becky kind of casts the audience as these investigators who are to follow these people, which I think really gives the audience permission to be voyeurs and to feel I'm a part of it, but I'm also able to watch, and it just makes it more curious.
I like that. On first glance, people always say I don't want to go to a show that's audience participation.
Yeah.
They always think they're going to be pulled
They
up
hear
on
it and they're
stage for something like that. But really, you're just sort of you're encouraging their curiosity, and you're sort of challenging them to find those pieces that everyone may not pick up on.
Yeah.
And this ultimately ends up being the conversation that we end up having on the way out anyway, or on the walk home if you bought 2 tickets, because we tell you every time we do an interview you should buy multiple tickets. You should bring a friend, because you want to talk about what you just experienced once you finish. We're fortunate here because you can actually do work like this in the Independence National Historical Park.
yeah.
It's without actually having to go through a bunch of hoops, you can actually say, "Oh, we're doing the show inside a national park." Which is really great. Talk about some of the rehearsal process. How long have you been working on it, and were there any? What were some of the discoveries that sort of came through this whole process with all of you?
Well, I haven't done in a long time something where I have been physically, restrained by something. I know it sounds stupid, but, it's... So, we'd started rehearsing... Alex and I are literally handcuffed to a chest. And so, we started rehearsing with this, ice chest that was empty. It was very very light, and it was great. And then Hank was like, "I've got the chest," and he brought it in, and it was very different. And so the challenge for me has been there's so many great things to do with that chest, and being handcuffed to it, and trying to use your hand that's handcuffed to a thing to enhance to pick up cards or do whatever you're doing. And also, how do you do that without, hurting your partner, hurting yourself?
It's okay to hurt Alex.
Yeah, he's fine. He can't defend himself. He's in Key West, so he's fine.
Book in his head.
Yeah. So what has been an interesting challenge for me is, how do I use something that is detrimental to my movement space, as an actor? How do I still incorporate that into what I'm doing and my bits and my gags, and make it still funny, and also give my partner the ability to be funny and give him what he needs? It's been an interesting. It's just been interesting. I haven't done something like that. I've been attached to things, or have physical. Space constraints, but never to this degree, and it's been an interesting project and an interesting thing that I didn't expect to be such a challenge, and it's been a real challenge, but a fun one, and so it's been interesting. That's my thing. Yeah.
And Jen, you're familiar with the house.
Yeah.
Very familiar with the house. So, were there any things through the process that were not originally there from the beginning that, because of your knowledge of the house, that allowed you to sort of maybe add to the experience of this?
Actually, I don't think so. Hank did the walkthrough of the house and decided what rooms he wanted to use.
Okay.
And we haven't been rehearsing there at all. So there has been kind of a challenge in our collective memory of, like, how does that work in the actual space? You know, where's the doorway in relation to that chair? And you know, where's the audience actually going to be? So a lot of that, I think, is going to be... we have our first rehearsal in the space tomorrow evening, and I think a lot of that is going to be changed. A lot of what we're doing is going to have to shift, and we'll have to reblock certain things. And there's a lot of the physical comedy that we haven't really been able to do because, for example, one important bit happens on the staircase, and without the actual staircase of the Physick House, we haven't been able to choreograph it. So that's something that we're going to do.
I think that's the only main bit we haven't been able to do as far as the physical comedy.
The one with you and Robert.
Right. That's the only other one.
And much like theater in general.
Yeah.
You know, you're rehearsing in a 4x4 room, and you have to sort of imagine all these things that are going to be there, and then when you get there, you've got, because traditionally the stage is that piece that you're missing, and then once you get a handle on that, the audience is the piece that's missing. But in this case, it's the whole house, and then working with all of those things. I'd imagine that there would be some interesting comfort once you get in there too, because of just how the Physick House feels in general. Just
how the sound reverberates.
Yeah, and
off
it doesn't
walls.
have that. It doesn't have that. I guess that restrictive element that a stage has, where you're on the stage and the audience is there. You're just kind of, everything is where.
Yeah.
Do you, in general, do you think immersive theater, being a part of immersive theater, is a better experience for you as artists, or do you have like a preference as, to one or the other?
I personally really love it. My little experience in the past with Hedda specifically was really great, because it's almost like you're combining film with theater, because you can go to levels of subtlety that you can't generally reach on stage.
That's a great thought too, and every audience member is a camera.
Right, and they're each, I think you mentioned that each one is getting a very specific response, based on where they're sitting in the space or where they're standing, and what their relationship physically with the actors is, and that's really exciting.
Yeah. Leslie.
I think being at Pig Iron, I do a lot of devised and unconventional theater, and that's always been more interesting to me than just like a proscenium stage presentation. I feel like with interactive or immersive theater, the audience is just getting a more fulfilling experience. They're actually like going through something, experiencing things for themselves, as opposed to just being presented with something. And so I really like that idea of challenging thought and being able to let people come to their own conclusions.
Cool. So besides you said the stage manager kind of gives the audience sort of a little housekeeping conversation at first. What sort of how does the audience engage in this piece?
So when they're on the outside, when they're outside the building, the idea is to kind of stick together, almost like a walking tour, of which Philadelphia has many. And when you enter the house, basically the rule is you can go wherever you want, but you can't open any doors. So if a door is shut, you can't go in that room. But otherwise you can explore as you wish. So if there's something going on upstairs and on the ground level, like, you get to choose where you're going to go. You can stay and leave however you want.
You could give yourself a tour of the Physick House.
You can give yourself a tour of the Physick House and be like, forget this play, I'm just gonna do that
I mean, I
instead.
feel like that's totally what I would do. I would just be like, what else is there that I can get into?
But I imagine the person that does that, is
They'll
hearing.
overhear.
They're hearing through
Yeah.
their
They're still
peripheral.
in this world of...
And I tried to script it so that no matter what choices you make, you can still follow the broad storyline. Like, you won't be lost if you miss something, but you'll have an enriched experience based on what you choose to see. And it also allows you to focus on maybe the characters that you think are the most interesting. And maybe hopefully you'll come back a second time and you'll end up seeing like an entirely different show because you'll make different choices.
You're like, I'm going to be in the back of the crowd this time because I was in the
actually,
front.
I'm going to stick with these characters instead of going upstairs or whatever this time around because I could like hear that they were talking, and so I guess there was something happening or whatever it is. Like, there's different ways you can do that.
Yeah. So I always ask in general, what do you hope an audience will take away from this experience? And I'll just pitch it to all of you. What do you all hope an audience will take away from this experience?
For me, this is the second time I've done something in a historic house. And what I hope that people realize is that there are these amazing structures, and that theater doesn't have to be confined to the places that we think of as being typical theatrical places. I hope that people walk away being like, wow, like, so I could do just something in a house. And I know that sounds sort of like a duh, but like I think what the power of something like this is you come out, you've really enjoyed yourself, and you're like, I had such a good time, that was so funny, I enjoyed this, that, the other, and then you remember that you didn't sit in a chair and see it. You experience it in a different way, and that something that you don't need money, or you don't need like, I don't know. I think people get separated by the idea that like theater has to be in a space like a church or like in a sacred space, like a theater, or where it's the type of thing that you come in and you sit down and you experience something.
Right.
And I think that you can challenge that idea, and that's what I'm hoping people walk away with.
Yeah. And that they were engaged, that
Yeah.
they were active participants, even though they're not directly interacting with the actors, that they're actually on their toes.
Yeah. Cool. Leslie?
Yeah, I think like them leaving with a sense of like a fun experience, like maybe a sense of play, like just to remind themselves that not everything has all these like very strict rules, and life is about going out and experiencing whatever you want to, and there are lots of possibilities. And I think it's great that the show is in this old house that probably many people have never been in before. It will encourage them to go find more things like that. It can encourage them to look up Buster Keaton. There's the Kafka element.
Yeah.
There's I just think there's a lot to,
You want to put a pin on that?
What they said. No, I mean, I hope they enjoy it. I certainly hope that they're inspired to return to the Physick House and explore it properly, because it's a really cool place with cool history, which is not part of our show at all. And but ultimately, I mean, I think it's a very relatable play. I think it's only a mild exaggeration of the kind of systems that we live in. And, ultimately, to me, I really like immersive theater and all that kind of thing, but it's ultimately just another storytelling tool. And while I hope they get a lot out of that and enjoy that aspect, I hope that their focus is on the characters and the story, and that's something that they take away from the show, is what these characters go through and how that relates to their own day-to-day lives.
Okay. Cool. Well, the production is called The Fortress. It is written by Hank Curry. It's a piece of immersive theater that'll take you through some parts of the old city, and primarily takes place in the Hill-Physick House. You can get your tickets online. I have the link. The link is below in the text. You'll see. But the production runs for 4 days, so it's May 25th, 26th, 27th, and 28th. This does not cost a whole lot of money, so you can buy 2 tickets. You can even buy 4 tickets and waste 2 tickets.
Bring the in-laws. Yeah.
It's an all ages thing. You can bring all your friends.
Yes, $10, and Friday, Saturday is pay what you want.
Yeah, pay what you wish. Yeah,
Which I suggest paying $10.
So you should pay $10. Yeah. The pay what you wish. I always look at that as like I'm on the fence, so I'll come tonight, and at the end I'm going to pay what I was supposed to pay, if that's the case. But $10, it's not going to kill you. It's 2 drinks at Starbucks. It's
it's less than a movie.
Yeah.
It's lunch anywhere in Center City. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But Jen, Katie, Leslie, Hank, thank you so much for coming here today to Rep Radio Studio B and talking about this production. I'm a fan of immersive theater. I love this sort of element where we're not being pointed at, but we will form our own opinion. It kind of forces me to prick up my ears and maybe pay a little bit of attention to something I think that was, you may not have thought was necessary at all, but then you're like, wait, I saw that thing on the table, and maybe that ties into something, because, when we're thinking about set design and laying down props and stuff, everything that's there needs to be there.
Right.
So, if you're not analyzing everything, you might miss something. And with immersive theater, you can sort of take in those things that are just sort of there, whereas on a stage you might see, like on a stage there's a show that takes place in an office and there's a clock or something, but you might not pay attention to that clock. But then somebody else might realize, did you notice that they changed the time on that clock as time changes? Just little things like that make you say, like, wow, they thought of everything in here. Or that's really interesting. There's these minute details that you pick up on, and that's why I think it's always great to bring a friend to theater, because you're both picking up on different things, and the things that you may not be clear on, you can have a more broad conversation about it on your walk home, or whatever you're going to do after the show. This is 90 minutes of immersive theater. Give yourself some time, and it's right before everybody runs off to the beach. Yeah. So make your way out to Old City to experience the Fortress. I want to thank you all for joining me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Rep Radio is inspired by our community and listeners like you. Our operation is a fiscally sponsored project of Fractured Atlas. Show your support by making a tax-deductible contribution at repradio.org/support. To join our team or communicate with us, drop us a line at repradio.org. Stay tuned. Rep Radio is on the air.